You're now listening to the Adiel Gorel Show. Each episode, I'll bring you the latest news from my discussions with top health and wellness experts so that you can bring yourself into better health. Today, on the Adiel Gorel Show.
Your body will respond. And I think that's Beth's story. You know, she had the tumor, she was able to heal it. Not in any sort of magical way. It was just getting rid of the toxins out of her life, and it allowed her body to heal her.
Hi, everybody. It's a joy to be here with you today. Chad, it's always great to see you, of course.
Absolutely, Adiel. Good to see you again. I'm really looking forward to today's conversation.
Yes. That was a fun interview. So Beth Greer is an old friend of mine. She used to be the president and the co-owner of the Learning Annex with her husband, Stephen. And I was a speaker for the Learning Annex for decades, really enjoyed speaking for them. So of course, she was the typical media executive, so to speak, you know, hurried, busy, microwaving food in the office, eating out, long hours. And then she thought of herself as a very healthy person, but she discovered a benign tumor in her chest. And she realized that she was not eating right. She was too stressed. She was working too long. So she started going inside and looking. She realized a lot of the stuff that she was using in her life, which is a lot of the stuff that we are using in our lives, could be pretty toxic. So many of the things, from what we eat, all kinds of food additives, the chemicals in cleaners, detergents, all kinds of stuff like this. So she really took some time to go to an all-natural lifestyle. And it took her 6 months, but the tumor did go away, and she became a big proponent and teacher of all of this stuff that has to do with how to live as much as as possible, a toxin-free life. And so, even tap water that we drink could be a source of a lot of chemicals. So unless you use a filter at home, a good filter, that could be an issue. Makeup, fragrances that people use, scented candles, candles with lead wicks could all be sources of toxins. So she talks about what we put in our body. So she recommends that we eat, of course, real food, organic, heirloom, non-mass produced food. Eat the way your grandmother would have eaten. And also, some people think they're being very healthy if they eat meat. They eat grass-fed meat. Well, turns out the label that says grass-fed is not enough. By law, meat manufacturers can call it grass-fed, and the cows eat grass until a few months before the slaughter, and then they get grains to fatten them up. That's not what you are looking for. So you want grass-fed, grass-finished. So a pasture-raised, grass-finished, organic, free-range is not enough for chicken. So this is all quite important to see, because manufacturers could trick us with labels that are legal yet misleading. So that's an interesting thing to know.
Yeah. The interview was fascinating because at first, the first thing I thought of was that how we all assume, even if we think we're doing the right thing, that we're actually, living a healthy lifestyle. But, we live in a very toxic world, chemical laden world. And we don't often think about it because a lot of these chemicals, these toxins, are invisible to us. They're out of sight, out of mind, whether it's, the way I like the way that Beth put it, she's kind of broken up the way she thinks about this for what we put in our body. Like you were just talking about the food that we eat, the beef, and the labels that we use to try to, figure out if it's healthy for us or not. And it can be very misleading. Also, the chemicals inside of the products that we put on our body shampoos, creams, fragrances, like you were saying. And then there's the stuff around us. And we've talked on this show about things like, EMFs. But I'm even thinking about things like the carpet in our house, the paint on our walls, the glue in the moldings and things that, like, there's toxins and chemicals in all of this stuff. So it must have been quite a job for Beth to take 6 months and try to figure out where all these toxins in her, on her, and around her that were causing this illness, this tumor that she had.
So she became somewhat of a detective. She told us a story about she went to a person's house who started feeling really sick, didn't know why. She brought all her meters and measurement tools, and she realized he was sleeping with his head maybe 2 feet away from a large refrigerator in the garage, which is only sheetrock. And so when they moved the bed, he got better. There was a lady that she talked about who was very healthy, a yoga meditator person, and she, of course, would light these candles. And they discovered that the candles were emitting a lot of toxins that she was constantly breathing. So they took care of that. Of course, she talks about electromagnetic fields. And so you have to be careful in general. Our cell phones, don't sleep with your cell phone on and near you. Go at least a 10 feet away. The router in your home, if you don't use it at night, turn it off. Maybe even during the daytime, you can put it inside a Faraday cage. She has a lot of cleaning tips about using cleaning products that are safe. But she says vinegar and water. Vinegar is truly natural. You can use it to clean a lot of stuff. You don't have to buy any fancy stuff. In the show Life 201, we have a book and we have video materials. Beth filled it with information. So I think that people can go to the adielgorel.com website and get, the public television package that people could donate, to PBS and get. And that will have the book, that will have all of those things. I think we're going to put the book on Amazon soon too. So that's useful.
Yeah. I mean, and again, these are the things that we often don't think about, but, she mentioned just because something, and this goes to what you were just saying a few minutes ago, just because a label says something is natural doesn't mean that it's safe. I mean, Beth was quite adamant in a few points that she kept repeating over and over again during the interview, really to, as much as possible, and if you can do it 100%, only eat organic food, really. And even the label organic, you have to be careful of, because sometimes people will be very clever and they'll put the word in their name, but it's actually not verified. And you've mentioned on this show a few times that even organic food isn't guaranteed to have no traces of chemicals, because organic farms, for example, aren't obligated to test their food after it's grown. If chemicals have blown from a farm nearby, they could still land. Of course, they won't be in the concentrations that if that farm was using it all the time, but you're still getting little bits of it here and there. So you do what you can do. We live in a chemical world, but I thought that this interview was very practical. I mean, some of the other stuff that she mentioned, you were just talking about food, but she said, be careful with labels like made with, because she said that's kind of a tell. If it's made with, it means it's not 100%, right? So they could say like made with natural ingredients. Well, what are the other ingredients that it's made with that aren't natural? So you have to be curious about this stuff.
It's so true. And again, she talks about some of the stuff we put on our bodies, like even deodorant. So many deodorants have things like propylene glycol, which is found in antifreeze.
Yeah.
You don't want that absorbed into your body. So even when you use deodorants, watch out for some. Of course, you don't want to use one that have aluminum, but even ones that seem healthy. So really, you do have to read, you do have to look at it. She recommends not using toothpaste with fluoride. And again, I know there's a big debate raging about fluoriding the water, fluoriding our toothpastes, but at least according to her, we should use a toothpaste that does not contain fluoride, which is quite a toxic material. She talks about, by the way, herself only uses baking soda as a deodorant.
Yeah.
I mean, but and then some products like Tom's and Burt's Bees are great, but you still have to read the labels because not all of their products are healthy. And in fact, I think one of them was bought by one of the giants, so
Clorox or something she mentioned. Yeah. Yeah. And she said that actually she was using Tom's as an example of a deodorant that used to be really good. And then they started adding this antifreeze type chemical into it. So she said she's not slamming the brand, but she's saying you have to be aware of what's going on. Some of the products are great, some aren't. And so it's really just taking ownership over your health. And, I was thinking about it. There's so many people who feel that, the aches and pains that they have, or the weight gain maybe that they have going on is caused by, overeating or aches and pains. They say it's just getting old, as they say. But it could actually be that the body is fighting some of these toxins and it's actually inflamed. Weight gain, for example, when we have toxins in our bodies naturally try to flush it out. So you retain a lot of water. And then it stresses the body. So you get cortisol levels that start to, ramp up. And now you're gaining weight. You think it's because you're eating too much of a certain type of food from say a fat or a carb perspective. It might have nothing to do with that. It might have everything to do with the toxins in it. And I can tell you, like in my own life, I eat tons of good fats, lots of good fats, and I lose weight. But the fats I eat are organic or naturally sourced. There's nothing else in it but what it is. So, your body will respond. And I think that's Beth's story. She had the tumor, she was able to heal it. Not in any sort of magical way. It was just getting rid of the toxins out of her life, and it allowed her body to heal her.
So she talks, we already mentioned, she talks about fragrances. She says, not all scents are bad, but you have to watch out. So yeah. I think as a rule, she said, just to simplify, as a general rule, try to use fragrance free. Yeah. Because you don't really know what the word fragrance means. So when you get all those, I even saw that we got garbage bags that had the scent. So, nope.
Yeah.
I'll get one without a scent. I don't want the scent. And so there are many ways of looking at it. And by the way, you can also move stuff around. We talked about the rebounder. Yeah. And when you rebound on a mini trampoline like that, a rebounder, you get your lymph moving, you get things moving, going outside, getting vitamin D, exercising, sweating, using it, saunas could help us clean. But I can't help but, Chad, you and I have women in our lives. And many of the women we have in our lives put all kinds of stuff on their faces, a lot. And a lot of those cosmetics could be unclean. They could be toxic. And they get absorbed through the sponge-like skin and could cause a lot of damage. So, I mean, the whole issue of cosmetics, you need to look at, women, I think, need to look at, nowadays, I need to say women and men, whoever wants to use them, of course, or anybody else for that, for that matter.
Sure.
Need to look at finding ones that are not toxic. So when we eat, we try to go either to the farmer's market or to a very good store that can source organic, non-GMO foods. Watch out for all of that. Grass-fed, grass-finished, pasture-raised chicken. Try to grow your own garden, she says. This way you have a lot more control over your food. Even when you buy your fruits and vegetables, try not to buy them in a plastic bag. Try to buy them close to the source as possible.
Yeah, she referred to that as living food. So she gave an example, like you can buy organic carrots that are cut up and put in a bag for convenience. or you can buy organic carrots that are just look like a carrot that was pulled out of the ground and it still has the big stems and the green leafy things off it. She said, those are the ones you want to buy, not the ones in the bag, because the ones that are already chopped up, they've been washed, maybe in a chlorine or something. Like, you don't know what they've done to it to make it convenient for you. And so I think what's important here actually is that this is sort of a side note, but the interview you had with her made me think of this. In our society, I feel like we've become such a convenience laden society that we relate to the effort that it would take for us to clean our own food or to put the effort into understanding what's in the products we buy or everything. It's like we're against this. I want to encourage our listeners that the little bit of extra effort you put in to reading the labels and making slight shifts can have drastic effects on your health. And yet we're so, if it's not convenient, we don't want to do it. And so I think people should start to think about the weighing the convenience factor versus a little bit of effort for increased health and longevity. It's going to take a bit of effort.
Well, a good example is also, it's very enjoyable to eat outside. You and I just went outside and had a nice dinner and lunch only recently, and it's fun and it's great. But of course, when we go to a restaurant, we have no control over the kind of oils they use, the kind of cookware they use, a lot of stuff we cannot control. So it's very lovely, but when you start making it too frequent, I mean, in other words, to eat at home most of the time gives you the control over what goes in your food.
100%. And I can tell you during COVID, because so many people were stuck at home and were probably having to cook for themselves more than usual. I've actually, first of all, I love cooking anyway, but I've really enjoyed it because, I haven't changed all that much about my lifestyle, but by cooking at home, I mean, I've dropped 30 some pounds this year during COVID. And I don't know the exact percentage, but I know a portion of that is because I've been eating so clean, controlling both ingredients and portion. I used to eat out all the time, and it was very difficult, to get a hold, like you say, what is in the food? We don't even know. So it's a good point.
What you said just brought on a crazy thought for me. Last year, the incident of flu and cold was the lowest it's been in a very, very long while. So, of course, the natural way to say, of course, we stayed at home, we didn't go out, we wore masks. Obviously, you won't have a lot of flus and colds. That makes, the most sense. But what if a portion of it was that people didn't eat out as much and they ate more at home, and at least the people who eat healthy benefited? It could be a roundabout because a lot of people just ate bad stuff at home anyway, which is still convenient. So that's just a silly thought maybe, but going back to what you said about EMFs, one of the biggest moving trends now is the issue of electric vehicles, EVs.
Yeah.
And just something to ask the manufacturer or the store where you buy your car, is there a good radiation protection? Because after all, you're sitting on a giant battery all day. Check it out. Now, if the salesperson says something that sounds like, huh? Then go deeper, call the company. I would assume that the companies put some, extra money to shield the, EMF from the giant batteries. But why assume? Why not verify?
Yeah. She mentioned, and on that note, she mentioned a website that she thought could be helpful for people that she called the Environmental Working Group website, which is ewg.org. And she said that this website, it sounds to me like a little bit of a consumer report for healthy living, if you can think of it that way. She said that if you go to that website, they list just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different products and different brands. And on that site, you can find out, you know, whether they deem this product more or less healthy based on their analysis and stuff. So it could be a good resource for the listeners if they even, I don't know, I haven't checked if cars are on there, but maybe even they're going to start reviewing cars from a safety standpoint for health and wellness.
So right now, nobody's really putting studies like this on electromagnetic frequency radiation for telephones, for cars, for many other things. Once again, it's invisible. Nobody can see. But if you're in an apartment complex and you're surrounded by routers in your apartment, the upstairs, the downstairs, the side apartment, you want to take some precautions. There are some extreme ways of dealing with that. You can actually paint the inside of your home, you know, the inside and outside if you want, with paints that serve as a radiation shield.
Yeah, they can absorb it.
It's more expensive, but you know, again, some stuff to consider. You know, some people that are pretty extreme even sleep inside of a Faraday cage to have a total whatever. But just the simple stuff, I think, not leaving the phone, you know, wide open at night, not on a, you know, airplane mode, right next to your head. I think that these are the low hanging fruit.
Yeah. You know, it reminded me of your interview with Dr. Lou. And I remember when I was working with her privately, she said something to me, and it reminded me of, you're talking about cars and batteries and things. But you know how many of us, we get a new car and we love the new car smell, you know, it's that smell. And Dr. Lou said to me, that's not smell. That is toxins. There are toxins in that smell, you know? And so this is how, you know, easy it is for us to get and even Beth says, if on a product it says fragrance, she said, by law, fragrance could include thousands of chemicals inside of the word fragrance. And they don't list them. They don't have to list the hundreds or thousands of chemicals that make up that fragrance. So again, it could be as it's seemingly as nebulous as, oh, it's just smell. It's just, no, that's, what are you breathing in, right? And this is going to be the next big, Adiel, I'm excited to say, the next big movement. You know, we had a big clean water movement several decades ago where we started paying more attention to what's in the water, and it's still debatable if all the water is clean everywhere. We know it's not, but it's at least on our radar. The next big thing is going to be, what are we breathing? What is in our air? Whether it's a fragrance you can smell or not, our air has a massive, massive impact on our health. If you consider how many breaths we take in a day, and what are we taking into our cells through that? That's the next big thing. I know it.
Well, you know, I used to think that I live in a place with very clean air north of San Francisco on a hill. But then the last 4 years, we had fires every year. And for 1 month, we were breathing the most foul, toxic air. A lot of that stuff remains there, you know, so things to kind of keep in mind. Yes, of course, that's going to be a big thing also. But I mean, if people are listening to this and it sounds like it's starting to get a little hairy, too many things to do, just eat as natural as possible, as simple as possible, whole foods as much as possible, grow a garden if you want to make it less expensive, yes, and don't eat stuff that's not organic if you can afford it. A lot of people are going to listen and say, listen, it's very nice for you to talk like this, but I can't afford it. So to the extent that you can, or grow your own garden, but just simplify your food. If you eat meat, remember, grass-fed, grass-finished, chicken, you know, free range is not enough. It's got pasture-raised eggs are good. And then stuff you put on your skin, creams, makeup, toothpaste, you know, all kinds of stuff. Just put a little bit of an effort, or go to the book Life 201. She has a whole chapter on this with precise things, what to do, which we'll be happy to share with you. And then electromagnetic radiations. So she says what we put in us So that's what we eat, what we drink, the water, what we put on us, and what is around us, as you said, So we have to watch out for all of those things. You don't have to get crazy. If you get rid of the low-hanging fruit first, the easy peasy stuff, that could make a big difference in your life and health.
Absolutely. Well, Adiel, we've got about 3 minutes or so left here. I want to give you a chance to chat about the next interview that you've got coming up. And I know that this is going to be an interesting one for a lot of people because it's one of those topics that people love to talk about, don't love to talk about. They feel sometimes a little uncomfortable with. But we have Kim Anami coming up. Tell us a little bit about why you're excited to chat with her and what you want to learn.
I'm very excited to talk to Kim Anami. I mean, it's not really so much the word sex, although the word sex is right there. It's a bit, sexy. So people get, but it's, the Tantra. We have appetites for food. We need to drink water. We breathe air. Sex is a part and parcel of our life, and sexual energy is part of our life. My suspicion, and I'm going to talk to her about that, is when people say, oh, this guy or this woman have natural charisma, I think that's sexual energy manifest. So, there's a lot to learn about it. In the United States, in the Western culture, I think there is a bit of a repression around the issue of sexual health. So it's very good to talk about it, to know about it, to cultivate and stimulate it. I just read this morning, there was a website that sent me, an email saying 5 ways to live longer if you're in your 60s. One of the ways was have sex regularly. Apparently it has all kinds of, so no, it's not just, about sex. It's about all the stuff that has to do with what some people call the second chakra, the power, there's a lot of power there. There's a lot of misguided notions. There's a lot of stuff to know. And also, if we get better at anything, it improves our life. So if we get better in that realm, it's an improvement in our life as well.
Yeah. And just to kind of add to that before we wrap up, I think for listeners, there's the way people relate to sexuality culturally, but what we're talking about is sexuality from a place of health, from a place of your wellness, from a place of the human organism. And so often these two things get collapsed on each other. It's like, oh, I can't, because the way we relate to sex culturally makes us feel uncomfortable about even talking about it. But to your point, it's a critically important aspect of what it means to live a healthy life. And so we do ourselves a disservice when we let, the faux pas of the cultural aspect of it get in the way of us understanding how integrated and how important it is for us to live a healthy lifestyle.
Right. It's very natural, just like all our functions. It's good to know what it is, to make it better, to optimize it and to benefit from this massive, energy that we are all given. So I think that's going to be an exciting interview.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that, we're at time here, Adiel. But I want to thank our listeners as usual for tuning in and encourage them to tune into the next episode when you'll be interviewing Kim Anami. And until then, take the time to look throughout your kitchen, look throughout your laundry room. I mean, your house, it can be overwhelming, but start somewhere. Just start to acclimate yourself to what you're using. Look at the ingredients. Is it healthy? Is it not? And we'll make sure we've got some resources as well on the Adiel Gorel website to help you start to kind of be your own detective and get to the bottom of your own health and wellness. Any last words, Adiel?
Thank you so much for being with us. It's a pleasure to bring things that might be of use to you. And we are looking forward to seeing you the next time.
Absolutely. And until then, tune in again. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining me today. Click the subscribe button for more video. Got a question or comment? I love questions and comments. Leave yours below. And here's another video you've got to see.